Tolkien, the legendary author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, is often celebrated for his extraordinary imagination and intricate world building. But few pause to consider how much his experiences in World War I influenced his work. While he's rarely grouped with the likes of Ernest Hemingway or F. Scott Fitzgerald, writers of the Lost Generation, Tolkien's time in the trenches left an indelible mark on the themes, characters, and landscapes of Middle-earth. Despite his own resistance to the idea, Tolkien acknowledged that his service had shaped certain elements of his stories. In the foreword to The Lord of the Rings, he explicitly stated, "It is neither allegorical nor topical. I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations." He rejected reading his novels as direct metaphors for the Great War. And yet, careful study reveals echoes of his wartime experience in everything from the landscapes of the Dead Marshes to the courage and resilience of Sam Gamgee. The importance of literature in Middle-earth. One of the most notable features of Tolkien's work is the prevalence of songs, poems, and storytelling, especially in The Lord of the Rings. At first glance, this might seem unrelated to the war, but it actually mirrors real life circumstances faced by British soldiers. By the early 20th century, literacy rates in Britain had soared thanks to the Education Act of the 1870, which created state-funded schools. By the time World War I began, soldiers were highly literate and often drew on literature as a source of comfort. Letters home frequently included references to novels or poems, while trench poetry emerged as a unique form of expression, blending personal reflection with commentary on the war. In Middle-earth, music and storytelling serve a similar purpose. In The Return of the King, the citizens of Minas Tirith sing songs of past heroes to endure dark days. In The Two Towers, Sam compares himself and Frodo to characters in the tales he cherishes. I used to think that kite adventures were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into. These moments echo the literary refuge that soldiers sought in their own harsh reality. Small moments of respite. Despite the central narrative being a war between good and evil, Tolkien peppered his story with moments of peace and reflection. Locations such as Rivendell or Lothlorien act as literal oases, offering the Fellowship a chance to recover and gather strength. Small personal experiences, like Merry and Pippin savoring lembas bread after capture, provide a fleeting sense of safety amidst the chaos. Even in Mordor, Sam can find hope in glimpsing stars through the clouds. Tolkien's wartime experience informed these scenes. Soldiers in the trenches occasionally experienced similar respites. The famous Christmas Truce of 1914, in which British and German troops stopped fighting to socialize, play soccer, and exchange gifts in no man's land, demonstrates that even in the midst of horror, moments of humanity and small pleasures persisted. These experiences, combined with everyday reliefs, a cache of tobacco, a shared meal, or brief shelter from bombardment, likely influenced Tolkien's depiction of temporary reprieves in Middle-earth, the Dead Marshes, and the horrors of war. While Tolkien resisted reading his work as direct allegory, he explicitly admitted that certain parts drew inspiration from his service. In a 1960 letter, he wrote, "The Dead Marshes and the Morannon owe something to northern France after the Battle of the Somme. The Battle of the Somme was a 141-day battle of attrition, resulting in over 1 million casualties. Soldiers faced ghastly sights, including bodies slowly sinking into mud-filled trenches." Siegfried Sassoon, in Memoirs of an Infantry Officer, described, "Floating on the surface of the flooded trench was the mask of a human face, which had detached itself from the skull." This haunting imagery is mirrored in the Dead Marshes, where Frodo observes, "There are dead things, dead faces in the water," and Gollum explains that these corpses were victims of long past battles, preserved by the swamp. The Dead Marshes exemplify Tolkien's ability to transform trauma into imaginative landscapes. The fear, desolation, and eerie beauty of the marshes reflect both the physical and psychological horrors he witnessed. Frodo, Sam, and shell shock. World War I was the first conflict in which psychological trauma, then called shell shock, was officially recognized. Soldiers returned home haunted, unable to articulate the horror they had endured. Accounts from veterans describe lifelong psychological struggles, with some unable to leave their homes or engage with society. Tolkien's characters, especially Frodo, embody this experience. After the destruction of the One Ring, Frodo struggles with lasting trauma. He withdraws from the Shire and eventually leaves for the Undying Lands, unable to resume his former life. Sam, while more resilient, also experiences difficulty processing events and communicating them to others, reflecting the enduring psychological scars soldiers carried. Tolkien's depiction aligns closely with what modern psychiatry recognizes as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The Hobbit's return to the Shire, one chapter largely omitted from Peter Jackson's films. The scoring of the Shire highlights the impact of war on home and community. The Hobbit's return to a Shire transformed, where friends are imprisoned, and Saruman imposes industrialized oppression. This reflects Tolkien's own post-war England, which had changed dramatically during his service. Industrial expansion, new factories, and urbanization reshaped the country, much like Saruman's alterations to the Shire. Tolkien's anti-modernist beliefs are evident here. Evil forces often embrace industrialization and environmental degradation, while good societies maintain harmony with nature. Locations like Lothlorien and Rivendell embody this ideal, blending architecture seamlessly with the natural world. Humor amidst horror. Even in the trenches of World War I, soldiers employed dark humor to cope with fear and monotony. Fake newspapers, parody ads, and satirical poetry allowed soldiers to retain humanity despite the horrors around them. Tolkien mirrors this in The Lord of the Rings. Merry and Pippin joking about bed and breakfast while captured by orcs, and Legolas and Gimli turning battles into a competitive sport, show how humor can endure even in dire circumstances. These moments echo the coping mechanisms of soldiers, highlighting Tolkien's keen observation of human resilience. Messy systems of alliances. World War I was precipitated by complex alliances, pulling multiple nations into conflict after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Similarly, in Middle-earth, the rise of Sauron threatens Gondor, compelling it to seek aid from allies. Sauron's alliance with Saruman and Gondor's appeal to Rohan create a cascading conflict that mirrors the way entangled alliances escalated a local dispute into a world war. Tolkien's depiction reflects not only military strategy, but also the unintended consequences of interdependent allegiances. Sam Gamgee, the reflection of the English soldier. Tolkien openly acknowledged that Sam Gamgee was modeled after soldiers he served with in 1914, especially his batmen, lower-class privates assigned to officers for cooking, cleaning, and other tasks. In a 1956 letter, Tolkien wrote, "My Samwise is indeed largely a reflection of the English soldier, the memory of the privates and my batmen that I knew in the 1914 war, and recognized as so far superior to myself." The dynamic between Frodo and Sam mirrors the officer-Batman relationship. The officer relies heavily on the Batman, who possesses practical skill, loyalty, and courage. This relationship underpins much of the narrative, highlighting everyday heroism, perseverance, and selflessness in wartime, the realities of war. Tolkien captures the brutal, unglamorous reality of war. Soldiers, both real and fictional, rarely see the glory of victory firsthand. The Battle of Pelennor Fields, for instance, is celebrated by Gondor and Rohan, but Merry and Pippin witness the horrors of battle without romanticizing them. Similarly, World War I soldiers endured fear, futility, and trauma, rarely experiencing the pomp of triumph. Tolkien's work conveys the courage, endurance, and stoicism of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, the steadfast commitment to fantasy. Unlike many post-war writers who embraced realism or irony, Tolkien chose to create a poetic, heroic fantasy. He later explained, "A real taste for fairy stories was quickened to full life by war." Scholars suggest that Tolkien's imaginative style was a deliberate defiance of modernity and the grim realities of post-war Europe. As John Garth notes, the war often vilified the arts and romanticism, yet Tolkien persisted, crafting a world filled with hope, heroism, and moral complexity. Conclusion. Tolkien's experiences in World War I left subtle but profound imprints on Middle-earth. From the Dead Marshes to Sam Gamgee, from moments of respite to the industrialized corruption of Saruman, the shadow of the Great War looms over The Lord of the Rings. His fantasy world reflects real human experiences, courage in the face of despair, humor amidst horror, and enduring bonds forged under pressure. While Tolkien rejected allegorical interpretations, the resonance between his service and his storytelling is unmistakable. In Tolkien's Middle-earth, as in the trenches of 1914-1918, heroism is quiet, perseverance is ordinary, and the true battle lies not only against external enemies, but against the fear, trauma, and moral complexities that war inevitably creates.